Hello, everybody. Let me turn on some lights. Oh, that's better. I don't know what caused that. Okay. Um, yeah, so the big news this week is that we released our new book, The Christmas Carol Duet Book. There's a link. I just put a link in the chat for a page dedicated to that duet book, the new duet book. Okay, this is our eighth our eighth duet book. And with this eighth duet book, we have officially published over 400 duets, which makes it an average of 50 duets per book. Over 400 duet books. 400 duets in 8 different books. Um, that also includes some that are not published in a book. We do sell some duets that are just like standalone. But yes, this is the big thing for the week. Right now, it's only available, I think, 2 or 3 different places. Um, Kevin says, congratulations. Well, thank you. So it's available physically right now only at lulu.com. And normally for the physical stuff, I prefer Lulu, but because of the coil bound, we only sell it on Lulu. We sell it as a PDF and coil bound. The coil bound is so much better. I know it doesn't last as long, but it sits on the music stand correctly, and that matters. As far as I'm concerned, that matters. Um, so and see, Amazon won't sell coil bound. They'll sell it if you're selling it like aftermarket. Like somehow you got, let's say you bought one at Lulu and then you sold it at your channel or whatever they call that at Amazon. And so, yes, that happens. Um, I'm not sure how that happens if they have those rules. Um, anyway, so that's the big deal. It's 76 Christmas carols. And you can read the page about it. The 76 Christmas carols are arranged just the Christmas carol, no extra stuff. You guys have heard me talk about stuff in your improvisation, stuff in your arranging, stuff in your compositions. We don't like stuff. Stuff comes from the brain. The rest of it comes from your ear or from your heart. So we just don't. Larry says Christmas in July, right? Well, so that's the thing, right? Is when I was in South Africa last time, it was in July, and we went to up into the mountain where they have Christmas in July, right? Why is that? Because in the southern hemisphere, winter is in the it's the opposite of the northern hemisphere. Winter is in during our summertime. So there's a lot of people down there like to have the Christmas tree and all that stuff, with the snow and all that. So how are you going to get that down there? And except for during Christmas in July. So yeah, we went to the Hogsback. Spent I think a couple days there. I think so. All right. Let me warn you. This was a particularly bad day for dialysis. Okay, so I might be sleepy before we get to the end. Right now, I don't feel so sleepy or or sluggish. But it was a bad morning. So just warning you. All right, I've got some questions that I've got from comments. So Larry asks, is the physical book on sale or just for sale? And I can't do on sale for the physical stuff. So the only on sale I have is at my own website. I can't really do that with other websites because they take so much of a cut. Okay. So yes, the only place I can offer a sale is for the PDF on my own website. I'm hoping, with all the financial changes and whether you like it or not, good or bad, I'm hoping that one of the things that happens in the near future is that our postal system gets straightened out. The only reason we don't sell physical books in our store is because the postage for a physical book, especially internationally, and I know there are people who would say that, well, let them make that decision. If they want to buy the physical book, let them pay $60 to have it shipped. I can't do that. I don't care how rich you are or how poor you are. That just doesn't make sense to me to pay 3 or 4 times more than the price of the book just for the postage alone. And then, like in South Africa, um, the people in South Africa who do the post office make up custom stuff on the spot. It's like, what do they feel like today, right? They mark up, 30, 40, 50% based on how much money they want. It's very suspicious, really. Very suspicious. Very corrupt, from what I can tell. And it's anyway. So my point is, not only do these countries now, when we used to sell physically from our store, and we looked up what's going on with the postage. The postage from the United States to another country is something like 10 times more than from those countries back. And it's just ludicrous. So that's one of the things I'm hoping for. Like I said, I'm not trying to make a political statement. But if there are changes being made right now, please change that. Huh? Please change that. Because, talking about rich people, poor people, trumpet players who need these books aren't going to pay 60, 70, 80 bucks for postage. It's just not going to happen. Anyway, so yes, that's why we don't do a sale on physical books, because all of those physical books are print on demand. You order it, they print it. And so, yeah, and they charge a big fee for that. If you want to know like a hierarchy of the best places in terms of how much money we get, let's go worst to best, right? The worst place to buy our books is Amazon. If you buy on Amazon, I think we get about 1/8 of the sale price. So hypothetically, if you buy a $40 book, I'll get $5. If you buy a $15 book, it's not uncommon for me to get from it's not uncommon for me to get uh uh not I don't want to call it a receipt, records showing that I got $1.50 from Amazon for one sale of one book. So uh the next worst place would be any of the other um international bookstores, Barnes and Noble, any of the ones that are listed in Europe, the stores that are in South Africa, the stores in Australia. Now, before I move on with that, let me be clear about this. I want you to have the book. Okay? That's why they're there, is so that you have the book. I didn't write these books to make money. I would, we've talked about that before. It's not that I don't want money, but that's not the reason why we publish the books. It's more than that. We want whoever needs the books to get the books. Okay? Um, and so yes, if it costs you less to buy the book, let's say you live in Australia. If it costs you less to buy it from, I think what's the name? Something there's something ape. I think the ape one went out of business or something like that. Let me look at what it says here. Booktopia. I think the ape one is gone. Booktopia in Australia. If it's so, Booktopia probably pays me about twice what Amazon does. But if that's the best way for you to get it, then get it that way. If Amazon is the best way for you to get it, then get it that way. I hope that makes sense. So, yes, the next on the list of worst to best, after the international stores, um, is Lulu. If you buy a physical book at Lulu, we'll get at least a little bit more than those other international stores. Now, the good thing about Lulu is they have Lulu in different countries. So they can print it in your country so you don't have to pay international postage. And I don't know what countries they're in, but that's kind of nice, isn't it? Um, I've had people from Australia who bought the books through Lulu because it's less postage that way. And that way you can get coil bound. It's not, I don't think it's free postage, but at least it's not American postage, right? I hope that makes sense. Okay, and then the next would be pay hip, but that's uh, digital, right? Pay hip, and also, we do get we do have it digitally listed in other places. Pay hip is better than that. And then the last best place to buy the stuff is from our own website because all we pay for that is like the credit fee, um, the whatever percentage uh, uh, PayPal charges. Anyway, let me let me answer some questions that I got from. So, for example, Gerard Gerard's a long time um, observer, let's call it observer of our YouTube channel. And he asked me if I can talk about, because we talked in one of the videos, we talked about my hearing loss. So he says, tell us more about the hearing loss, ensembles, and tuning when you have time. So the most important thing to keep in mind when it comes to my hearing loss is that I know no other life. My hearing loss happened when I was like 2 years old. And my mom says it's from complications from a hearing ear infection. So I don't know any other life. So when I learned the trumpet originally, I learned it with the hearing loss. Does that make sense? Um, so what does that have to do with ensemble? So the nature of my hearing loss is that it's a high frequency hearing loss. And the best way to explain what that is to talk about the alphabet. So all the words that have A as the vowel sound inside of it, A, J, K, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Anyway, you get the idea, right? All the ones that have the E sound, B, C, D, E, G, all sound the same. The A ones sound the same. The B ones, the E ones, um, the U ones sound the same. So if I hear somebody uh, say the alphabet out of order, I won't know what letter you're talking, what letter you're saying. I just won't know. There's no way for me to know that you said B or E or G, because the sounds that differentiate those letters from each other are the sounds that I can't hear very well. Now, that doesn't affect my ability to hear what the other instruments are doing. The only thing that this is theoretical because I don't know any different life. The only thing that this hearing loss might affect in terms of my ability to do the job is hearing tone. My concept of what trumpet tone sounds like is probably very, very different from everybody else's. This is part of the reason why when the theories that I have about intonation not being scientific, I can play it in tune. But what that means to me is something very different than what it probably means to you because of the hearing loss. But think about it. Think in terms of practical and theory, right? How much does it matter how I hear it? If I think it's in tune and it sounds good, and you think it's in tune and it sounds good, it's in tune. That was weird. Oh, I'm looking over here, and I'm like, where did that come from? It's the other side. The It's not like a mirror. When I lift my hand, it's on the other side. So anyway, does that make sense? So it really doesn't affect my ability to do the job, because that has always been my perspective from the beginning. And if you're the kind of thinker I am, and you sit and ponder this kind of stuff, this is where a lot of the depth of what I teach comes from. The looking into the not just psychological but also the philosophical. I think when it comes to trumpet, those two are connected. So anyway, that's question number one. Thank you, Gerard. Marcel, who is a student of mine, he asks, and I'm going to read the whole thing because it puts it into perspective. Interesting. I have a few questions. First of all, how do you find out if lip buzzing is helping you or not? Second, how do you know if you have an inflammation or a muscle-based embouchure? As for science, I believe, well, we can skip that part. Let's see. Sorry, Marcel. I'm just trying to get to the questions. Um, just to complete my first question, since doing a routine, we start by the lip buzzing, then add the mouthpiece buzz, then go through the long tones, the tonizations, the slurs, the pedal tones, the articulations, articulation intervals. He's going through the whole routine list, and he says, "How how do you get to know the effect of your playing of the lip buzz?" So, to answer that, I have to answer why are we doing lip buzz? And the reason why we do lip buzz is to put our mouth, the musculature of our mouth, in the right position. And that's not a static thing. That's not static. So this is one of the reasons why I don't like the whole M thing. There's other reasons as well. We've talked about it here before. But one of the reasons why I don't like the educators that say the letter M, M, right, is because it's static. You're just looking at one position, and the lip buzz. I mean, the muscular for playing the trumpet is not static. There's not a right embouchure. There's a right embouchure for each note. And let's complicate that even more and say there's a right embouchure for each note at each volume. It is a moving target. So the reason why we do lip buzz is to get used to aiming at that target. So when we practice buzzing a note that goes a scale that goes up, we are practicing aiming at that moving target. And so, how do you know you're getting that? Um, how do you know you're getting benefit from that? The best way to know is to look at the musculature. I don't know if that's a real word. Is that a real word? I've been saying it a long time. Um, before I said the word musculature, before I introduced that into my teaching, I used to teach um, the posture of the muscles in the face. So if one of okay, so we're talking about the benefit. If you have this, if you are benefiting from the lip buzz, the most important, the most evident aspect of that is that you are that the muscles can handle the load without doing something else. Like you don't have to twist the horn, you don't have to push real hard. Um, and don't. This is a little ambiguous. A lot of people would say, well, it's because you get a better tone and you have better range and all that stuff. It's not that straightforward. There are people on the other kinds of embouchures that get great tone. There are people on the other embouchures that get good range and stuff like that. So the most important thing when we are doing the lip buzz is the what the muscles do. Um, so if we're going higher and the lips curl in, and then you go to the trumpet and do the same thing on the horn, then you are benefiting from. And I guess that's the reason why he's asking the question, is because if you're not me and you haven't been teaching this for so many years, how do you know you're benefiting? And it's a great question. There's stuff that I'm looking for. So it's not whether or not you have a great sound or not. To me, I'm listening for what kind of sound do you have. And I know that's still ambiguous, and I apologize for that. Um, and really, the answer for this question is not straightforward. Um, so let me say this: I can tell the difference. Now, his second question has to do with how do you know if you have a muscle-based embouchure or a inflammation-based embouchure? And that's kind of ambiguous too. Um, the inflammation-based embouchure. I'll tell you what I'm looking for when I'm evaluating a player. Um, an inflammation-based player can't play without. So if you, and when I say can't play, I mean it's gone. Their ability to play. So if you take 3 or 4 days off and you can't play when you get back, nothing comes out. Not even after a like when you the way I teach it, you take time off and then you come back and you do that first routine. Maybe when you first put the instrument up to your lips, it wasn't coming out. But after you've done the lip buzz, after you've done the mouthpiece placement, after you've gone through it, uh, it maybe it's not as good as it was before you took the time off. But you're playing and the notes are coming out. Someone who is inflammation based, if they take 3 days off, they can't play. And they have the process of warming up at that point is the process of causing the inflammation to come back again, which is always dangerous. This is why these guys must practice every day. So I would say that's the most obvious. The type of sound they get also is another indicator. The type of sound that they get. It's not. I'm not saying good or bad, but the type of sound. A muscular embouchure is more fleshy. I don't know how else to say it. So there's different clues and hints that I'm looking for. Another way to spot An inflammation-based player, this is one of the most obvious ones, is they always have a setup. They never just put the horn to the face and play it. Right? They don't have that. They have, now some of them are worse than others, but a lot of times the inflammation-based player will will and why are they doing that? Also, another thing is inflammation-based players cannot play on a wet embouchure. Why? Because the manipulation they're doing will slide out of manipulation. Does that make sense? Okay. So yes, there are signs like that. Let's talk about some of the, so like the inflammation player also might have less flexibility, but that's relative, isn't it? So it's hard to say if you're having, what the last thing I want is for people who say I'm having flexibility issues. Well, I must be a uh, uh, that kind of embouchure. That's that it's relative, right? So you don't know why you're having flexibility issues. So that's not actually good. Um, but yes, so there's two of them right there, two ways to figure it out. You have the setup, that's the first thing that you look for. And by the way, that's why we do the mouthpiece placement exercise. Someone who has, so don't do this the opposite way around. Be logical, right? Um, Someone who has an inflammation-based embouchure probably can't do this. And the reason why they can't do that is because the way they play the trumpet is not based on the muscles being like this. The way they play the trumpet is based more on whether they twist the horn or whether it's some weird, any of that stuff. Like, I'll tell you one of the most common that most teachers will talk about is, this is the most common form of inflammation-based embouchure, is when you play in the red. And the way you know, let's share screen and put my little thing up there. The way you check to see if you're playing in the red of the lips is not by looking at it from the outside. That's not how it works. A lot of people will look at the outside and say, "Oh, you play in the red." That's bad teaching. Don't do that. Okay, let me share screen here. Okay, here we go. Let's say this is, so we want to use a visualizer. Let me grab the visualizer real quick. All right, so if we put the visualizer up and buzz the way, and the thing about the visualizer is it needs to feel like it feels when you're playing the trumpet. Don't do something different. Otherwise, it ruins the whole purpose of the visualizer, right? So let's say you are looking at the visualizer, and I am not a professional artist. So let's pretend that this is round. Okay. If the top lip is here, and the rest of it's all bottom lip, you are officially playing in the red. Now, there are a lot of players that look like they're playing in the red, but they're actually dead center. The only way to know if they're playing in the red is with a visualizer. Don't let anybody. There's people who have made serious embouchure changes, and you know what? The when you have an embouchure change based on wrong information, it can be the end of your career as a trumpet player. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you play in the red if they never looked inside. Okay? So, getting back to the point, if you do play in the red, that's the most common form of manipulated, um, the what do we call it? The inflammation-based embouchure. That's the most common form. There are others, like I told you about the twisting of the trumpet and stuff like that. This is more common than all of them. Okay? So if you have that, if you have um, where the mouthpiece is sitting so low on the top lip that only a sliver of top lip is in there, then yes, you are a. By the way, how do I know about this? Because I used to play that way. When I talk about my crash and burn, I'm talking about this. I'm talking about an embouchure that's a mouthpiece placement that's so low on the top lip that only that much is there. Okay? So that's easily the biggest way to tell is looking for that kind of manipulation. All right, let me move on. So Larry says, I recently purchased a few of your books in spiral bound format. They're really nice in that format. I agree with you. I agree with you. Crayfish, hello, Crayfish. Crayfish says, for the third etude for jazz, is it straight or swung? Everybody's asking me that. I think they were in a hurry this year. So here's what I want you to do. Don't think of it as right or wrong. Think of it as, does it sound good? Okay. We get so caught up when it's a contest like that. We get so caught up in trying to do what the right way is. We get so caught up in that we stop making music. I played it swing on my recording. I've heard people do it without the swing. Both of them sound good to me. It's not marked. You could say it is marked, but no, it's not marked, because if you look at what it says at the top, it says something like, and by the way, I didn't put it there. It says something like jazz rock straight quarter note. What in the world is that supposed to mean? That has no meaning. Even the word straight, even if the thing was supposed to stop at straight, what's that supposed to mean? Straight what? Now, this is partly my fault because I didn't indicate in the original that I sent. I did not say that it was swung. I didn't say that the 16th was swung. And so that's my fault. But if you want to know what you should do for the contest, do what sounds good to you. You will always win people over more if you think you sound good. Of course, there's There's people who think they sound good and they're terrible. I'm not talking about that. That's musical illusions of grandeur, right? Anyway, Kevin says, not a question as much as an add on. I have noticed a difference after 6 months of lip buzzing, but it's been a very slow and gradual and subtle change. A good change, but subtle. Good. I love to hear that. For others, yes, Mr. Lewis is my trumpet teacher, and I am doing the routine 6 days a week. Woohoo! Right. All right. Okay. What other questions do we have? I would like to encourage everybody to ignore this crown stuff on the side here. That's, you guys know I don't like manipulating people, and that's all that is. I wish there was a way to turn it off, but there's not. Not to my knowledge. You should see what the I've gotten an email about it since last week, and they're trying to encourage this kind of like competition between you guys because of what it does for me, right? And that sounds okay. It's not okay. It's manipulative. And I understand a lot of people don't think there's anything wrong with that kind of manipulation. I think there's something wrong with it, and um I'll jump through circles to try to not be part of that. All right. Any other questions? I guess I'm not as sleepy as I thought I would be. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer. And it's funny because I got the question from Marcel, and I thought to myself, oh yes, I'll answer that in the next Q and A. It didn't dawn on me until I started answering the question that I don't have a definitive answer to how do you know if you're benefiting from the lip buzz. I don't have. I mean, the stuff that I look for, there is that. And so anything that would have anything to do with the posture, like your ability to grow your range to the next level without trying, there's, and what do I mean by trying? Without having to keep work on high notes. And so I'll tell you what happens when you have a muscular embouchure. This is one of the things that I'm looking for, right? When you have a muscular embouchure and you're, by the way, let's be clear about this. The muscular embouchure and whether or not you're benefiting from the lip buzz, that's really one question. That's really just one question. Because how do you get the muscular embouchure? The lip buzz is the first step in trying to get a muscular embouchure. So one of the things I'm looking for in a student to see if they are playing on that kind of embouchure, if they are getting benefit from not just the lip buzz, but the whole system. How do I know they're getting the benefit? Because a lot of times, I heard it yesterday. I heard it yesterday. I heard a student trying to do lip slurs, right? He, I'm over exaggerating, but he played much higher than he meant to play, and it just came so natural that I've taught both ways. I've taught inflammation players. I've taught um, the the muscle based players. You don't see um, inflammation players just accidentally playing a fifth above. You just don't see that. It really doesn't work like that. Okay. Um, the inflammation based players have to work hard to get every note. It's not easy. Everything is a struggle. This is when I put the horn away. We talk about um my the crash and burn scenario, right? When I put the horn away, that as part of that story, right? It was because I was tired. I couldn't go on anymore playing like that. It, not just the pain, but also the effort. Everything was hard. Everything hurt. Everything took effort. And I don't know, maybe you could say that I just wimped out. But when you're that age and you're looking at how do you want to spend your life, I didn't want to spend my life like that. I couldn't do that. Now there are people who do choose and remember that the inflammation-based embouchure isn't wrong or bad. Remember, I've told you guys this before. There are people who play that way and they are awesome. But I don't care how awesome I could have become playing that way. I didn't want to have a life like that. And I'll tell you what, when I first started, because remember, how many years? Fifth grade to high school is 7 years. And then I was in my third or fourth year of college. So about 10 years that I've been playing on that other way. And, a lot of us do this. Even the muscular embouchures players do this. We base how what we have to do to get the note based on how it feels, which is not the way we should do it, but we'll go into that later. Um, and so I still had, when I made my first changes, I still had memory of how hard it was to play high, how hard it was to do an interval and stuff like that. I still had that memory of how much effort it took. And I'm not exaggerating. When I switched embouchures to the more muscular based embouchure, and how did I do that? I did it with lip buzz. The effort that it used to take to play one step was the same effort it would take on the new embouchure to play up a fifth, up a sixth, depending on what harmonic I was on. And that's what convinced me to go whole hog with this change because I learned that I was trying too hard all that time. Basically, killing myself, if you think of it that way. Because between the physical problems that, I told you guys before, I had headaches, I had teeth that hurt. Um, my lip was, I thought, permanently bruised. It wasn't until I changed my embouchure that I found out that that bruise was not permanent. Bruised, like purple. My lip was purple. I just thought that was normal. And I had a purple lip since junior high. So, yes, it was physically painful, but it was also a source of great anguish. Having to work that hard to get anything done. So, when I switched and the learn how to make the notes change with your muscles instead of the manipulation. When I switched, the effort I used to invest into doing a whole step or a third would pop the note out. Now, I didn't have control of it in those first few weeks, first few months. I didn't have control of it. I felt like, I used to tell people this, I felt like Bam Bam. Remember Bam Bam in the cartoon? He could pick up a whole house with one hand. that's, that's what playing on a muscular base embouchure is like compared to the inflammation embouchure. Now let's talk about, again, I'm going to say it's relative. So if you're struggling to play higher notes, it does not mean that you play on a inflammation based embouchure. Don't, because what I'm talking about is relative. I'm talking about what it's like having spent 10 years playing that other way. Before I made my changes, that's what felt like Bam Bam. With so little effort, I could just make the note go up. Like I said, I didn't have control, but the note. And all my students that are muscular based embouchure people, and we experience this in the lessons. There's there's sometimes when this is especially true in the tonalization studies when you switch back and forth, right? Ba 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 ba. And then a lot of times when we do that switch back and forth thing, the students don't turn back down. They'll still do the fingerings, but they keep ascending. I don't even know if I can imitate that. But yes, they keep ascending even though they're doing down fingerings. And so, like a student might be, um, his official range might be just up to G above the staff. But because he's doing the tonalization studies and isn't descending, and he's still going up, 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 a lot of times they can play high C, high D, in some crazy circumstances, up to high E, above high C, when their official range is up to G. This happens quite often. Okay, so yes. So how do you know? Those are the kinds of things I'm looking for. So every time you overshoot the note. Now, how do you know you overshot the note? You actually have to have the ear to hear it. And typically, the reason why you overshot it was because you couldn't hear it, right? So, still, that doesn't help much, does it? But that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. Overshooting the tonalization studies, overshooting the lip slurs, overshooting the intervals when you do the interval studies. Now, we don't see the overshooting in the intervals as often, right, as we do with the other stuff, because it's at the end of the routine. And by the time you get that far, your lips are getting tired, and it's a little more difficult to overshoot in the way that we're talking about when you are tired like that. Congratulations for being tired like that. That's what we want. All right. Any other questions? We've got 5 minutes left. I hope Crayfish was able to hear the answer to that. I grew up calling them crawdads. I don't know why. We weren't in the South or anything like that. And let me give you some other foodie trivia. In South Africa, what they call crayfish is what we call lobster. If you order crayfish in South Africa, you're going to get lobster. Larry says, what is the difference between the old daily routines and the Chops series books? Okay, so the old daily routines. Okay, let's talk about the most obvious difference. I moved the tonalization studies to be between the long tones and the lip slurs. So in the newer books, we go lip buzz, mouthpiece placement, mouthpiece buzz, long tones, and then the tonalization studies. I won't go into why I made that change today because we're almost out of time. But yes, that's the most obvious difference is I changed the order just a little bit. Technically, it's not much of a change. It may seem like a major change. It's an improvement. And when I wrote the original daily routines, I threw in the tonalization studies as a almost a appendix, something extra that you should be. It was only like 10 years later that I realized that the tonalization studies do fit physically in the routine. I'll go into more of that later if you guys ask. So that's the biggest difference. The other main difference is that in almost every case, and I say almost because it's probably every case, all of the exercises in the new books are expansion. Um, they don't just go up, they don't just go down, they go both up and down. So as you're going lower, you're also going higher. That's probably one of the most significant differences. Those exercises, because they do expand like that, are a lot more beneficial than the ones in the original book. Then also we have the addition of, in the long tones, we've added lip bends. Now the lip bends only happen from the player level up. We don't do lip bends at the lower levels. But also what we've added is actual, what do you call it? Pedal tone exercises. Other than that, it's pretty much. Oh, and I also added a what I call a what do I call it? Articulation endurance exercise. Now, when I first wrote the articulation endurance exercise, it wasn't meant to be in one breath, but I love doing it in one breath. So, like the first one that I ever wrote was the pro level. That would be group 5 in the daily routines. And it's one page exercise, one page etude. It's a trumpet etude. And I and this is back when I was sick. And I document on I started some new books. Let me see. Let me grab one of them if I can find them. Oh, So this one, this copy of the book is kind of new. Yeah, let's not do that. I wanted you to see the old book, but I don't know where that is right now. I actually write. I write how far I got, and this was very important for me when I was sick because I saw in my documentation, I saw just how far I could get and how that was shrinking. Remember, I don't know how much I told you about this. My lungs were 90% full of water at the last part. And I think also the anemia had played a role too, because I couldn't get enough breath when I was playing my trumpet. Everything was fine when I wasn't playing trumpet, but yes. So I was documenting my sickness through my ability to play that page from beginning to end. I would put the date, and then what percentage or what number of measures I was able to play or something like that. So those are the main differences between. The other difference that's also pretty obvious is that it's not one book yet for all the different routines. And I'm sure glad I did it that way, because if I waited until all the routines were done, you still wouldn't have those books to remember. Everything for me is making sure you guys have what you need. That's what it is for me. And if I had waited until all the books were finished, we would still be waiting. So yes, I'm very grateful that that that's how it came out. Um, Kevin says we call them crawdads in the Ozarks too. Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for your questions. Um, Always nice to hang out with you. Oh, I see we've got more people now. Let me see if any of you want to add more questions right now. I can go another 5 minutes. So if you have more questions, let me know. Oh, hello, Jeffrey. I didn't say hi to Jeffrey. So, yeah, if there are any questions, I'll give you about 30 seconds to ask another question. I'm surprised I didn't fall asleep on you guys. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Um, God bless you. And we'll see you next time. All right. Thank you. Bye.